It remains to be seen whether or not the two players will try to get an update on whether or not Table 1 played or drew this round. Either way, Marshall can't take that ID because of a pair down. This is Table 2.
Right, yeah, he will have to play here. Harvey would love to pick up a win. That would put him in a much better position going into round 16. For Arthurs, he'll get another shot even with a loss here, but a win should lock up top 8 for him. And for Dominic Harvey, we have another Is It Drake's player. We've covered a number of players on this archetype this weekend. His list is a little bit different. We see a lot of 3 dive down, 3 spell pierce. He's shaved a spell pierce. He has a main deck Rail Is It Viceroy, which is pretty good in a matchup like this. Generating that value, if the board's relatively even, can be very powerful. And sometimes you use it to take down a larger creature, or if the board, your opponent's ahead by 1 creature, it's a significant swing to have a Planeswalker there. And he's also playing Rekindling Phoenix in the main deck.
Okay.
And that's quite good against Golgari.
I was going to say, that's the kind of, like, if you're in a mid-range fight, Rekindling Phoenix is an excellent card to that. It's really fallen out of favor in Standard.
Yeah, this is a matchup where it can be tough to Niv Mizzet. Ravenous Chupacabra, Vivian Reed make it complicated, so Rekindling Phoenix is more efficient.
So the thing I was saying when I was playing Jeskai, where Golgari's just can present, you can't contain it. Is that the same dynamic here, or is it going to be a little bit different because this is It?
Is it? Yeah, so the ability to remove the offending player from the game is very important. The ability to attack the life force out of 0. A lot of the Is It strategies that I've tried, there's a configuration where you can take care of the smaller creatures. The Is It deck is not going to have an easy time of dealing with Carnage Tyrant. You do have to be ahead on the battlefield, but the big advantage it would have over something like Jeskai is you can just win the game in combat.
Yeah, and so we're looking at the list you mentioned. Yes, the full 8 Drakes along with 3 Rekindling Phoenixes. Even among our Is It Drakes decks we've seen, this is more pressure than I'm expecting.
Yeah, this is just kind of a weird beatdown-y, tempo-y deck.
So what are the cards we lost to make room for all these additional threats?
So it's really just the Niv Mizzets have been moved to the sideboard. So there's fully 3 Niv Mizzets in the sideboard instead of the 2 main 1 side split. So you get your Phoenixes there, shaved a Spell Pierce. Looks like he waffled on whether he wanted to put some treasure maps in the main deck. I believe that those have not been registered. Yeah, that's what we're looking at. 21 lands in the deck. But similar spell suite to the other players we've seen for Opt, for Chart a Course, for Discovery. Right. He's not bothering with these splash on Dispersal. We have seen a lot of players do that this weekend with 1 black producing land.
Well, we are underway. Dominic Harvey going to be on the play. Marshall Arthur's taking a mulligan to 6. And we start out with that Discovery on turn 2 from Dominic. But Marshall going to try to jump ahead with Llanowar Elves.
Yeah, that was a pretty big check. If you have a shock on the Llanowar Elves, that would be a nice swing. It wasn't one in hand, so that's a miss.
Interestingly, on Dominic's side, he doesn't even want the shock. If it's not on turn 1, he's not interested.
It becomes definitely too slow. You miss your window. There's going to be something like a Jade Light Ranger or Wild Growth Walker here.
And it is Merfolk Branch Walker.
Okay, that's actually one of the better things for Harvey to see there.
Yeah, I mean, it's much more answerable than Jade Light Ranger. Now, Marshall does undo the mulligan. He picked up Overgrown Tomb off the Branch Walker and cracked in for 1.
Now we're at a stage of a game. It looks like Harvey does have a copy of Shock in hand, and there's a question here between which is more valuable between the Llanowar Elves and the Merfolk Branch Walker. At some point, when Arthurs keeps hitting land drops, keeping him off 6 matters a lot, but right now the 2-1 might be of more value.
Dominic going to Lava Coil away the Llanowar Elves, and now we see why he would mill that Shock on turn 2. He didn't have a 3rd land.
Yikes. Yeah, missing there is very significant. He needs to get some Drakes online or the Rekindling Phoenix, as Arthur's deck is very good at finding mana sources.
Merfolk Branch Walker shows Wild Growth Walker. Yeah, you generally don't want to explore into Wild Growth Walker. It's the other order, so he'll put it in the graveyard.
Right, especially if you're looking for lands.
Back to Dominic Harvey we go. Does pick up a Steam Vents this turn.
All right, so you could start casting Enigma Drakes if they're available, though at this stage, Arthurs could potentially have Ravenous Chupacabra, Vraska's Contempt on the following turn. It's less exciting the longer it takes.
Beacon Bolt going to go for the Branch Walker, the 3-2. Right now, Beacon Bolt's count is at 3. Now it's currently at 4.
I do like that Beacon Bolt on that turn overplaying an Enigma Drake. You just need to slow Arthurs down and then try to set up Dive Down plus a threat.
Branch Walker swings in, but Marshall Arthur's no play on 4 mana. He'll just pass. Looks like he is building up towards Carnage Tyrant, has a Chupacabra. Nothing really to kill just yet.
Yeah, those are nice holdings if he can make some land drops.
Yeah, attacker is shocked. Here's Wild Growth Walker, a 5th land and a pass. No 6th land in hand for Marshall. He's got 3 cards, but it's a Chupacabra and a Carnage Tyrant, 1 and a 3rd. Dominic continues to remove creatures, but not be having a threat of his own.
He's been holding on to Dive Down and an Enigma Drake. A 4th land here would help him quite a lot.
Yeah, that's the play. Right now it is a 5 power. End step, Marshall goes for Vraska's Contempt. And Dominic can Spell Pierce or Dive Down. He's deciding which one he wants here. Do you have a preference?
Well, actually, I think that the decision is do something about this and then play into a Vivian Reed or just let this go.
Okay.
I think you would Spell Pierce over Dive Down if you do either. But the concern here is Arthur's just untaps and casts Vivian Reed, and that would be a nightmare scenario.
Well, the Spell Pierce was used. It's not untapping in Vivian Reed, but it is untapping in Chupacabra.
That's a loss, but it's an acceptable loss by comparison.
Yeah, Empty Board Planeswalker is less acceptable.
Right.
Here's Rekindling Phoenix from Dominic. Can Marshall hit land 6? The answer is still no, but he hits Vraska's Contempt.
That is a solid draw.
Dominic down to 13, and he's still a land away from getting Carnage Tyranted. Here is Crackling Drake. Draws Dominic into a Rekindling Phoenix, and he picks up the Drake. And I was like, yes, that's going to happen.
And there's Vivian Reed. This is exactly the situation Harvey wanted to avoid. And it's going to get worse if Arthur can never cast that Carnage Tyrant.
Well, all of Marshall's removal is just 2-for-1s. They either gain him 2 life or they leave stuff on the board.
Yep.
Yeah, here's Rekindling Phoenix. Dominic passes. He leaves up Dive Down.
And he played a untapped Steve Vents to get here. What could that mean? That is a precarious situation with the life total, though.
But at this point, Dominic is down to 7 from all these attacks and shocklands.
When I like this decision by Arthur's here, plus Vivian, there was a Ravenous Chupacabra. Instead, he takes Overgrown Tomb. Just going to Carnage Tyrant. It's pretty obvious what Harvey's up to.
Yeah, if you're going to shock for something, you have a card, and whatever card you have, it doesn't interact with this.
Right.
And there is Carnage Tyrant and a pass. And Dominic now in a bind. Yes, he can remove Vivian Reed, but he's at 7, and his opponent just made a Carnage Tyrant.
Right. I liked his navigation, but the mana woes really have finally caught up to him.
And it's a strength of the Golgari deck. Both players with some stumbling this game, but the Golgari deck, because it's full of more powerful cards, it was so much more forgiving.
Yeah, they just churn value. It's just a bunch of 2-for-1s, and Harvey kind of has that going on, except when your Crackling Drake just gets answered or ignored on the way back.
Yeah, he's hoping to trade it with Carnage Tyrant, and it's not going to work. Here's Cast Down, and that's lethal. Marshall Arthurs wins game 1.
Yeah, really slow start to the game. Both players kind of stumbling there, but Harvey missed on his 3rd land, missed on his 4th land relevantly for a while, and that just kind of adds up over time.
Yeah, I love the power of the Golgari deck. Remember, Marshall's on the draw on a mulligan to 6. And all he really had early on was some Land Elves and some Branchwalkers, just hung out.
The turn 2 Merfolk Branchwalker following up the turn 1 Landlore Elf looked pretty weak. But the thing about it is you just get the extra looks. The first one did draw an Overgrown Tomb, so that's a 2-for-1 there. You start hitting your 4th land drop, then he had a bunch of Vraska's Contempts, Ravenous Chupacabras, eventually cast that Vivian Reed, and these are all just really good value cards, and you can really grind the game out with that sort of effect over and over.
So let's look at some sideboarding. So Dominic Harvey, I want to go on his side first for Izzet Drakes. He had no copies of Niv Mizzet in the main, but he has 3 of them in the sideboard. He also has 3 treasure maps. So this is and 2 Sarkons and a Ral Izzet Viceroy. So 9 of his 15 cards in the sideboard are part of this go big plan.
I'm curious to see if this is the plan in this matchup. I like that a lot in the mirror. Against Golgari, though, Niv Mizzet is a little bit of a liability. It's a bit slower. It's 6 mana to get online. Specifically, Sarkhan and Treasure Map, this might be enough stuff that you can accelerate out Niv Mizzet and have an extra mana source for a dive down. If you don't, though, you get no value for your trouble. Chupacabra and Vivian Reed don't even let you draw a card.
Right. So, yeah, in the mirror, this seems great. So are there some of these you like more than the others, then?
So he has cards that are just safe in his sideboard. Disdainful Stroke's just quite good against Contempt, Chupacabra, Vivian Reed. So I can see a light sideboarding package with a Disdainful Stroke, and I'm curious to see if because he has so many mana accelerants that he thinks Niv Mizzet is good in this matchup for that reason.
So you're not convinced we go all the way up to Niv Mizzet here?
I board Niv Mizzet out in this matchup in my build when I wasn't playing Treasure Map and I didn't have Sarkhan. You just can't produce enough mana to leverage it. Rail is at Viceroy, I do think is good in the matchup, just kind of abstractly, though.
All right. On Marshall's side, 3 Sorcerer, Spyglass, 3 Plague Mare, 3 Deathgorge Scavenger, 2 Duress, a Cast Down, and Arguel's Bloodfast. He has the 3rd copy of Vivian Reed and the 4th copy of Vraska's Contempt.
So based on the main deck configuration, that extra Contempt, you've seen Rekindling Phoenix, that's quite good. Of course, it's a Drake matchup. Vivian Reed, Cast Down, very similar reasons. And with the shift of the Drake deck towards Dive Down, I think previously, when it was just a bunch of cantrips, Duress was pretty poor in the matchup. But Duress to clear the way against Dive Down, I do think is very significant and very good in this iteration of the matchup.
Yeah, I love the removal spells. I get what you're saying about Duress. The deck's all cantrips, so you not want to play Duress. The floor, I think, is pretty low because, Dominic is like a 25 spell deck. So even if you're hitting a mopey card, I guess you lost a mana.
Yeah, you're extremely likely to have a hit. And if it's a dive down, that hit is very likely to have a dramatic impact on the game.
Yeah, exactly. So Dominic going to have to come back here in the second game. Now, over also on this channel, one of our recent editions, I know you were guest starring this week, Ryan, was Versus Live. It's Tuesday, Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Tell me a bit about it.
Yeah, I did swing by every week, Tuesday and Thursday. It's just a live sort of playtest session. Play 3 matches, cover Standard, Modern, sometimes Legacy, depending on what the coming open is. And you just get to see some of the best players in the game. Ronoso and Brad Nelson, Ross Miriam, who I played against this Tuesday. And they just showcase some great decks and get some great insights. You can ask your questions live.
Yeah, for anyone preparing for this event, it was the one on Tuesday was showcasing Ross, Miriam, and then running a gauntlet with his winning deck. Is it Arclight deck?
Yep. Yeah. So I ran 3 modern decks into that. No spoilers.
All right. All right. You'll have to tune in. You can find him on our YouTube page.
Good plug for the YouTube page.
And Golgari midrange showing off some strength. I mentioned it was the most popular selection here on day 2.
Approximately a third of the day 2 field, which is a change of pace for this standard format. We've seen a lot of diversity in the format previously. Yeah, and
if you want to add together other archetypes, it's about a third Golgari, a third Niv Mizzet decks, and a third other decks. So some good representation here. Turn 2 is going to be Treasure Map from Dominic. Those have come in out of the board.
Yeah, the Treasure Map seems like it's good whether you're on Nivs or not in this matchup, just because it gives you some extra looks for your cards that matter, and it can accrue some card advantage over time.
Only real way they have to answer it is Vivian Reed.
Right, and hopefully you transform your Treasure Map by that point in time.
Upkeep looks like we have a Scry from Dominic, maybe looking for that land drop. And that's it. He puts a mountain on. The mountain's kept on top. Play that, and we see Shock and Opt both in his hand.
There was some interesting play involving Shock when the deck used to play Arclight Phoenix. You might try to save that because it's a 1-mana spell, but I think you just kind of shock anything you can with this configuration of the deck.
Well, swing another Merfolk Branchwalker, a mill of Jade Light Ranger, and this time it's Marshall missing his 3rd land drop.
And that makes that shock on the Branchwalker look even better.
Yeah, absolutely. Dominic holds on the upkeep. Does he want to scry again? Yes, he does. Looks like he has not found a threat yet. His hand mostly lands in reaction.
And until we get to the Carnage Tyrant phase, everything's pretty easy to undo.
Yeah, and that scrying did put him into Enigma Drake, so nice heads up from Dominic, and it's currently a 2/4. Marshall gets Black Man online with Memorial. Wild Growth Walker is cast.
Yeah, Harvey will want a lava Coil for that, or to get something else into his graveyard into Beacon Bolted. The Wild Growth Walker can get out of hand. It's not a matchup where the life gain really matters, just because your creatures get so large. But the Walker being a large creature on the crackback can become a problem.
So Dominic draws for turn, then decides to transform his Treasure Map. Looks like his draw for the turn was Lava Coil, so
all right,
as suggested.
the best possible, I believe.
And looks like it was a broken sleeve, so the judge and him are going to take care of that. See, he only brought enough sleeves for the 75. That one came off the sideboard.
Been there.
Yeah.
Just take the worst card in your sideboard and Fix that right up.
You know, I'd look at this match and be like, well, this isn't a card I board in against Golgari. I don't need this sleeve anymore. Treasure map finds its way to Treasure Cove, where
Treasure Cove,
treasure abounds.
The land of the Ryan Overturf. I suppose the Ryan Overturf coin. It's the land where Ryan Overturf is on the face of all the currency.
Do you register more treasure maps because of the coin token? Do you just like go out of your way to put it into decks?
You know, I am really excited to play this version of the Is It deck that features treasure map. What's this?
Wow!
What's going on
This
here?
is a different Treasure Cove. There's no Ryans allowed.
This is unacceptable.
Crackling Drake from Dominic Harvey. Look, this round's keyword is Matthias. Okay, I'll just tell you that.
Yeah.
You get next round.
I'm hearing where the player must have stolen the Ryan Overturf tokens because of their value.
Yeah.
Sentimental, of course.
So Crackling Drake made by Dominic uses one of the 3 treasures to do that. Adds his presence onto the board. They are still just 2 power at the moment.
There we go.
Wow. Only 2 of those. Wild Growth Walker and Jade Light. It stays in play, and now Jade Light Ranger will pump it out of Lava Coil range.
Yeah, that Crackling Drake, rather, a little aggressive. I think pretty high pressure to get the Walker down, especially with the Drakes being so small. Just 2 instants and sorceries so far.
If the Drakes were 7/4s or something, you could make the argument that, hey, we don't 3 life is whatever, we'll race it. But they're not there yet. So the only solution, that means we must need more Drakes.
I guess if you got a fistful of Drakes, you got to start casting them at some point.
Dominic will draw a card here as well, and now he's going to Lava Coil. You'll have to take care of Jade Light Ranger. Drakes go up to 3 power. And we'll race. Here's 6 damage. Marshall down to 18.
Once you get to 3 Drakes, that's a pretty nice positioning against Golgari. The card that they have for the situation is Find Finality, but that costs 6.
Considering Dominic's hand, if I'm reading this right, is Chart a Course, Discovery. This could turn lethal very quickly.
Right, yeah, all these cards are not just instants and sorceries, but they get extra looks at additional cards to put into your graveyard.
Right, so Marshall gains life up to 21, which means Dominic, if he gets his Drakes to 7s, this is still lethal.
Yeah, like I said before, the issue with Walker is it getting too much power. The life gain is largely irrelevant when your creatures just scale through the game.
Marshall shocks down to 19 to cast down one of the Drakes. That means Dominic has to get them up to 10s to be lethal this turn. That's a bit of an ask. And actually, Dominic was hit down to 13 on the attack. He's got to be careful here.
Yeah, again, that Walker gets big.
Draws shock.
It's like a Tarmogoyf.
So let's see, can he get them up to 10 this turn? It's possible. Here's Discovery.
Yeah, Discovery does have a ceiling of 3. Can be +3. Those are 2 lands. That's not really going to help.
+1. He has, if he keeps one of these lands on top and draws it, he still has Chart a Course, Shock. So he can get his graveyard up to 7, Shock Marshall down to 17. If he discards 2 spells to these Chart a Courses, it is lethal.
It's a really funny element of these decks is they like casting Chart a Course pre-combat.
The discarding can be upside. But yeah, he'd have to discard a spell to both Chart a Courses to make this lethal. That's a lot to ask.
Right.
Hand right now looks like he has some Chart a Courses, a Shock, a Ral, and another Enigma Drake.
Yeah, Enigma Drake and Rail in hand means that there's not currently a line on an instance or sorcery to discard to either Chart a Course. And I like this line better. He goes just for this Enigma Drake. That way he should have a shot at lethal next turn. He's not going to get swept. Again, Finality costs 6. He can have 1, maybe 2 Drakes killed, but he still at least has a Drake left over.
Right, he shocks away 1 attacker and then swings in for 10 to drop Marshall to 9. Even if Marshall Frascas contempts one of these Drakes, it's still going to be lethal.
Right.
You know, Vivian Reed. It's hard. Marshall can easily remove 1 Drake. It's not very likely that he can get rid of 2.
Right. Yeah, the board's just a little bit too wide for the mana available.
Do you think it's possible, can he explore and kill something like Jade Light Ranger into cast down might be able to do it for him?
Jade Light Ranger would gain him 6 life, which
right.
does change the combat math equation.
So Vraska's Contempt puts him up to 11, and he'll attack in, but so Dominic needs to put one more spell in the yard. I think he can do that.
Yeah, the deck is quite good at that. First, you get the draw step. You get to see if that card's an instant or sorcery. He's moving pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Arthur's has seen enough.
1-1, Dominic Harvey evens things up, and he does this capitalizing on missed land drops by counter racing with it in the air.
Yeah. Both game 1 and 2, just in the other direction. But some mana stumbles, and you really just can't do that in this matchup. Both decks accrue value over time. Having more mana lets you take better advantage of that.
So Marshall going to shuffle this one back up for game number 3. And we saw the treasure map come in out of the sideboard for Dominic Harvey. Ral, he has 1 main, 1 board. We know that they are kept in. Outside of that, we actually didn't see too much deviation from the game 1 plan.
Right. We have not yet seen the Niv Mizzet. Once I saw the treasure map, I think the card is just good. But there is that question, is Niv Mizzet going to be available in these games?
Does treasure map make you more or less or more likely to play the Niv Mizzet?
More likely. It's additional mana sources that can accelerate you to that. The problem with Niv Mizzet is it takes a lot of mana to Niv Mizzet and leave up Dive Down.
Right. So the 3 treasures, actually something I noticed that game. The 3 treasures were used for mana more often than they were used for card draw.
Yeah. I have not gone to the map version of these builds, but I've usually had 1 to 2 copies of Search for Esconta in my 75.
Right.
And with that one, I was using it for mana a ton. So when I see treasure map, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, there's a surprising number of games where I see people transform treasure map and then just use it as 3 lotus petals and never draw cards with it, which, you know, like, is certainly a deviation from what we've seen previously with the card.
Yeah, and when you think about what the deck is doing, what its roles are in certain matchups, it's a tempo deck. So taking advantage of that mana boost will often matter more than trying to accrue card advantage over time. Especially when your creatures just have 10 power. You don't need too many extra cards with that.
Yeah. Game 3 will put Marshall back on the play. A win here will not only lock him for top 8, but will likely give him the #1 seed heading into tomorrow.
That would be very, very beneficial to him.
A loss and things get complicated. It's possible Marshall can draw in with a loss, but it's been a 2-day tournament, and Marshall didn't start this tournament near the top. He's had a really good Saturday.
Right. He's in 1st through 3rd because he has a record that sets him apart from the field. Once you get into that lower bracket with more players, the waters get muddied.
Yeah, and his breakers are not good. So it's like if he loses this, there's a decent chance he's got to win the next one. The best way to fix bad breakers is to just have a better record
all year round.
Yeah.
I don't need a tiebreaker. I was just that far ahead.
Yeah. Opposite on the Andrew Jessup side of things, where his great Friday performance means he's still live for top 8.
Right. Yeah, assuming he can pick up this one and the next one.
Seven cards on Marshall's side, 6 on Dominic's. Dominic will scry to the top. And here we go, game number 3. No turn 1 excellent for Marshall. It is Memorial to Folly. Slow start, but he will have Wild Growth Walker on turn 2.
And if that curves into Jade Light Ranger, there's a lot of pressure for Harvey to have a Lava Coil here. And Treasure Map's good, but I would consider that turn a miss.
Yeah, I mean, you're hoping to dodge Jade Light Ranger right now.
Yeah.
And looks like he will. Merfolk Branchwalker, though, will pump once, draws Overgrown Tomb.
All right, that's not the end of the world because the Walker still has 4 toughness. You get another shot at Lava Coil here.
Yeah, once it gets to 5 toughness, that's just hard for the Izzet deck to interact with.
That means you have to really crank up your graveyard, get to either Ral Izzet Viceroy or Beacon Bolt for large number.
Yeah, and then you're ramping up to deal with a 2-drop. It's not.
Yeah. It's rough.
Upkeep, Scribe with Treasure Map for Dominic. Looking for that Lava Coil. He has the land. And looks like he'll keep the card on top, and it was Ral.
Okay.
So he's going to opt. Okay, so there's that other strategy you said about just building up toward larger things. And there are large things in Dominic's hand. He's got Enigma Drake, another opt, a Ral.
A Rekindling
yeah.
Phoenix. So the thing about the Rail is if you cast a bunch of spells, you get to a point where the Rail can take down the Walker, but this hand is a bunch of big spells, which is good, but they don't play with the Rail.
Right.
This hand is not getting him to Rail for five or more.
Yeah, he doesn't want to shock for that opt. And on top of this, I think that there's... We'll see whether this even is going to play coming on the next turn. Looks like we see another Branch Walker, and you're right, now the Walker's out of range. He'll explore into the graveyard. Gains 3 more life, gets another counter, and yeah, 5 toughness. Wild Growth Walker going to be a huge problem as Marshall Arthurs hits in for 5.
Yeah, just firmly in the driver's seat on the battlefield. Now, if this treasure map were ramping Harvey towards a Niv Mizzet, and we can get a Niv Mizzet dive down turn, that's the start to turn things around. That means you can use smaller spells to take down larger creatures because the Niv Mizzet will draw you cards and deal damage itself to add to the equation.
Yeah. But all this is going to be hard. Rekindling Phoenix is to play by Dominic, and believe there's a Vraska's Contempt hiding out on Marshall's side.
Well, the Contempt is bad news, and also Harvey has to take the turn off of activating the treasure map, so he's just falling even further behind.
Yeah, loses the blocker, and cost is he's taking 8. He's down to 5. Wild Growth Walker beat down may just send Marshall Arthurs into the top 8.
And that Rail is at Viceroy. That's not going to help this situation. He gets up to 5 mana here, but that can't deal with anything but the 2/1 Branch Walker.
Yeah, he'll opt and upkeep, but Dominic down to 5. He needs to remove... he can't get rid of the Walker. It means he has to get rid of both.
Yeah, he really just
both
needs
Merfolk.
like double shock or shock lava coil. He needs to get rid of those other creatures.
And Enigma Drake. That's not going to do it. Right now, he is dead on the board without a shock. And let's see if Marshall can walk it in.
The thing is, he has the mana to represent it, but that's not going to influence Marshall's play patterns.
It doesn't cost Marshall much just to swing and see what happens.
Right.
Deathgorge Scavenger eats away the ops. Let's make sure Enigma Drake's a 1-power creature.
Right, yeah, it's not Crackling Drake.
And Dominic Harvey extends the hand. So with that win, Marshall Arthurs is in our top 8. He's going to compete on Sunday. A 13-2 record means not only is he there, but he might be the top seed.
Yeah, locking up a great position in the Invitational here. He's already an Open champion, looking for another trophy for the